Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. Today is July 15th and this is my weekly shop update. So I didn't spend as much time out here over the weekend as I thought I would. So as a result, I'm not that far on my coffee table build. I did spend a little too much time outside working on the patio again, and I'll give you guys an update of that at the end here. But first, let me take the camera around and I'll take you guys through a little tour of what I'm working on over here. I know last week I kind of just sort of alluded to the design that I was going for. I didn't really have a good way to describe it, but I've got this build to a point where I could probably describe it fairly well. You can see kind of where I'm going, my direction with this. So let me just move the camera and I'll talk you through it. Alright, so here's where I'm at so far. I have my legs, and this is the sub top. There'll be another piece that goes on top of that, and that's actually going to be two book mesh boards. Here's one of them here, just to give you an idea. It's still rough, but I'll have two boards like this. These both are, I think, about 11 inches wide. So I'll have two of those book matched for the top, and they'll overhang the whole frame of the table by, I think, 2 inches on all sides. So let me just talk about the joinery for a second here. What I have here is basically a panel with a breadboard end on each side here, and then the breadboards are actually what tie into the legs. So that allows me to attach a solid panel in between these legs. So I have another panel here, the same setup, breadboard ends, and that's going to go right in here, about 5 inches down from the sub top, and that is going to be divided vertically so I can put a drawer in the center here, and you'll have two open areas on the sides. So the sub top is attached to the breadboard, and the breadboard is dovetailed into the legs. That's a little different than the shelf piece. The shelf is going to get a twin tenon on the end of the breadboard, and that's going to go into the legs. I do have this one here disassembled, just to give you an idea of what the tenons look like on the end of the breadboard. So you can see this is pretty standard breadboard type construction. You have your multiple tenons and your little, I guess your little stub tenon that runs the whole length. And that's going to fit into basically a rail piece or the actual breadboard. And as I was saying, on this one, these are going to be getting tenons that are going to go into the legs. So you might be saying to yourself, well, this looks kind of ugly. It looks kind of weird with all these steps here. And what I'm planning to do here is actually introduce a curve into both the sides and the front and back of the table. So you'll see here that I have a big step. This is basically how big of the curve is going to be. The curve is going to start a little bit before the edge of the leg, maybe an 1/8 or a 1/16, just to give a little reveal, and then it's going to curve all the way up and then back down again. And the same thing here on the end. The ends are a little long right now. I don't think I'm going to go with this much of a curve, but I have the stock there if I need it. So basically I'm going to have a curve on all four sides, which I think will be pretty interesting because, well, especially because as I mentioned, I'm going to be putting a drawer in the middle. So that drawer is going to have to follow the same curvature of the whole table. So that'd be kind of fun. I think it's going to be a pretty cool experience to build a drawer with a curved front. And I'm going to cheat a little bit with that. I'm not going to do any kind of bent lamination or anything. I'm just going to cut it out of a thicker block of wood. So I still have a bit of work to do here. Obviously I need to do the rest of the joinery for my shelf piece, and then divide up my shelf piece with my dividers, make my drawer. Actually, drawers. I didn't mention that there's going to be two drawers actually, one from each side. So whatever side of the table you're on, the front or the back, there'll be a drawer. And there's one more design element that I haven't mentioned yet, and it's a pretty simple one. Once the legs get past the shelf, I'm going to introduce a taper to the legs on the inside two faces. So that's how I'm getting my solid panels trapped between my legs. This design, or at least this design with the open sides and the shelf floating here, I think this is probably the only way you could really do that. I don't think I've ever seen anybody doing joinery on the ends of breadboards before. Not to say that I'm the only person who's ever thought of this before, but it's a problem I had to solve because I built a sofa table with the same design a few years ago. My wife and I were at a furniture store and we saw a table that had the same design, and obviously that wasn't made of solid wood. That was made of plywood or particle board or something. So I had to come up with an idea of how to not only really deal with the wood movement, but also to deal with the fact that you need to be able to join these panels into a leg in a non-traditional manner. So I thought, well, hey, why not slap a breadboard on the end of it and then just put some joinery on the end of the breadboard, and then it's kind of like a normal table in that sense. If you're new to woodworking and you want to get more into solid wood construction, pick a project that challenges you both from the aspects of the technique, how to join solid wood, different solid wood joints, mortise and tenon, dovetail, things like that. But also pick a project that really gets you into that whole of why is something built this way, why, what do we have to account for when we go to solid wood? Because this stuff moves, and it moves, well, depending on how big your panels are, it'll move a lot. And you need to account for that. So one of the first projects that you should look for if you're just getting into solid wood construction is something that really challenges your mindset of how wood works, why a drawer is built the way it is to account for that wood movement, why breadboards are there to account for wood movement, things like that. It really gets your mind thinking, and it kind of just puts you more into, it just gets you thinking more about the medium, and it'll challenge you too. So I'm not saying that everything has to be easy or hard, but at least it gets your mind thinking about things like that. I know Mark Spagnuolo, the Wood Whisperer, they had their live show, I think it was this month, about wood movement, and does wood move? And yeah, it does. If you think we take these precautions against wood movement for no reason, I beg to differ. Let me show you the desk lid on my secretary, and I'll show you how much that thing has moved in, I guess it's been like 3 months now. Sort of the nice thing about building large projects or projects that take a long time is you get to experience the whole piece through basically a whole season change. So I built that lid in the spring or the early spring, so it was still pretty dry back then. And now we're getting into the summer months and it's a lot more humid. So you can really tell that this lid has moved. Let me show you real quick. So when I made this desk lid back in April, this was flush here. And it's not a whole lot, it's maybe a little under a 1/16, but I got that on both sides. Top and bottom have moved a bit. So if you're looking at this whole board, I think this is about 14 inches wide. That's about 1/8 of an inch of movement, which may not seem like much, but if you're trying to restrain that in any way, it's going to move and it's going to pop whatever is holding it. So in my case, I have these pegs here. This peg is in an elongated slot, so it can move back and forth. This is glued, and then this one down here can move as well. So the panel goes like this, and it expands and contracts around this one point. Now you can use that to your advantage too. If you wanted this panel to expand only this way, all you would just glue this one, leave this one free and this one free as well. And last week, I don't think that both of the side walls were complete, but they're at their final height now. And I've actually filled almost all of the cores with concrete all the way down. On this side, we started backfilling the flower bed. Got most of that backfilled. Lindsay helped with that a little bit. I have my conduit here for my electrical. I installed an outlet box in the wall here, and I'm going to have a light on top of above the mantle eventually. So the outlet box there is really just for convenience and also to break up that conduit run. On the back wall, I got a few more courses added, but kind of the most exciting part here is the fireplace. I formed and poured the arch, and I haven't removed the bottom of the form yet because I'm kind of I'm a little hesitant to remove that because I can see the whole thing falling down. So I'm going to let that sit as long as possible, I guess, just to make sure that concrete is fully cured and as strong as it's going to be. But I do have a piece of rebar going through here, and then this is all connected all the way down through the cores. So this all through here is one single piece of concrete, essentially. And over here, I just have one more block to put in. I have to cut and fit one to this opening. But once that block is here, this part of the wall is done. Over here, obviously the chimney will keep going up, and then I'll probably have 2 more courses on that side just to get up to the top of the dirt there. So that about does it for me today here in the shop. Thanks for watching. As always, if you have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today or anything here in my shop, please leave me a comment. I always appreciate those. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next week, happy woodworking.